Hello and welcome to Edukemy's YouTube channel. My name is Harsh Singh, and in this video we shall discuss the featured news for today, that is on India's military expenditure that has increased proportionally in the last 10 years, 33%. And in this regard, we will understand the way India wants to reform its military, the kind of spending that India is having. You would be surprised to know that India is the second largest importer of arms and ammunition around the whole world, the largest being Saudi Arabia. Along with that, India also maintains the third largest army in the whole world after China and USA. China holding around 22 lakh working professionals, and America around 14 lakh. India stands third at around 12 lakh. Not only that, India is one of those countries which is one of the highest spenders in military again. India spends approximately $71 billion, which has now even accelerated to $75 billion. Now, this is where India stands only third to America, which is at the top 10 times India's spendings, and China, which is 4 times India's spendings. And if you look GDP wise, India spends as much as 3% of the GDP. It is very close to 3%. Around this mentions 2.4%, but it is around 2.8% of the GDP that India spends. Now, this in comparison to the other countries, India is one of those which is spending a huge amount in its military. That means not only the personnel, the number of people who are in active duty, we are also importing and we are also spending. Now, this is where in the age of transformation, defense also needs transformation. It needs to be revamped, and that's where India looks at cutting down of the personnel, the physical workforce, and transforming it to digital workforce, transforming it to automated workforce that can be used for integrated kind of warfare, the warfare that is for a very quick small amount of time, and it can be used in an integrated manner. For example, the same, just like America has Marines. Why are they called as Marines? Is because they not only are able to operate in the watery areas, they are also well equipped to be able to do a skydiving and to be able to run a tank, right? So they are able to participate in all the activities. Just like we have Marine commandos, we have Garuda commandos, and we have the Army commandos. We will need these kind of integrated warfare scenarios where all the forces are working in an integrated manner. But India right now does not have an integrated force. Army works in isolation, and so does Navy, and so does Air Force. That is the reason that we need a transformation in the way we look at the armed forces. First of all is the reduction in personnel and making the whole thing automated as much as possible. Countries around the world are doing that. Second of all is making the whole procedure indigenous, because countries around the world want wars to happen. They want to export more, and right now Russia and Ukraine are facing the same crisis. There is somebody who is profiting in this business, the war machine, the people making machineries. So indigenization is India's business. And the third important business is integrating the war efforts. So raising the integrated theater command, right? If India wants to do all these things, India will have to learn and improvise things from inside itself. What are those things? So the first thing India needs to work at is the personnel. See, the armed forces personnel that India has, if we look at army right now, it is 12 lakh, and Navy, it is around 60-70,000, and Air Force 1.5 lakhs. Now, the personnel that we have, this is not the fighting unit. This is the active personnel which is now getting fed, or which are dependent on salary, monthly salary. So they are there are units which are regiments in warring capacity. For example, we have Paidal Sena, infantry. We have the tank Sena, which is cavalry. We have artillery, which is the Top Sena, all that. But these are the fighting units. But there are many other units which are backing them. What are those? So we have stores and supplies, right? We have the manufacturers and maintainers of ordnance supplies. We have medical units. We have Army Education Corps. We have innumerable other departments which are not the teeth of the armed forces. They are, and what about maintenance and engineers and services? So we have electrical and mechanical engineers, EME. Then we have other departments like maintenance, right? Now, these are the tail of the lion, and the teeth of the lion are different. This is the teeth, which is the fighting unit, and these are the tail. We will have to cut down on these kind of tail. Not that they are not important, but the effectiveness, the efficacy of the army is dependent on its potency to be able to attack, and the magnitude of that force that we have. So we have to increase this, and we have to decrease the other side. When we want to decrease the other side, we will have to privatize some of these. For example, if we procure Tata and Ashoka Leyland trucks, why are these companies not providing us the service? Instead of them, why is the government providing these kind of service stations? So many of these services are due to getting cut down. This will help us in reducing the cost, the tail ratio, and then it will increase the teeth ratio. This is one thing that is an important reformation. The other reformation that, so base workshops, like Tata workshops, providing of these, vitals itself. Why by army? This can be done by private entities also. Similarly, we are looking at automating all these devices. So you want to border patrol, do it, but use a machine instead. Now this will help in saving Indian lives also. Now if you see, right now India as a nation of around 15 lakh army, navy, air force and 3 personnel, all of them, we spend as much as 40% of the amount in salaries itself, 40% of the amount in salaries, and around 35% in pensions, 75% of the amount that is in defense budget. If the defense budget, if you remember this was around 5.5 lakh crore, right? Around 20% of this amount is only used for capital expenditure, around 1.5 lakh. Only this much used for the capital expenses, and rest of the amount was used for supplying pensions and supplying salaries to armed forces personnel. If we have fewer personnel, we will have to have lesser salaries. If we have fewer personnel, pension also will be reduced. So when you want to reduce pensions, right? Oh, one rank, one pension, all those schemes were in controversies because of one of these reasons, that the pension amount is very high in our country. Only armed forces are the ones which get pension. Rest all the other departments, the pension scheme have ceased to exist since the year 2004. Now, so if you want to have lean and a very lethal force which has high tempo operations, right? Surgical strikes, immediate operation. See, these are the times when India cannot participate in long drawn war of 2 to 3 months. A limited war at a limited area, limited scale, and a very quick motive. That is what will be required during these times. This is what the generals and even the government officers keep on speaking. And for that to happen, we will have a thin force, a lean force, a force which is able to integrate the other forms of warfare, digital warfare, and technology devices as well. We will have to cut down on these entities. And this is a proposal from the government itself. Now, if you actually see the kind of proportion of investment that is happening by the government in various sectors of the armed forces, you will be again surprised to see some things. For example, Army receives 61% of the defense budget. Navy receives only 14% of the budget, which is protecting as much as 7,500 kilometers of India's coastline, and over and above 200 nautical miles of the wider exclusive economic zone, and helping out our neighbors, right? So, and helping India's trade, only 14%, and Air Force gets around 20% of the rest of the share. The point I'm trying to mention is the 61% that the army gets, a huge chunk of it is spent on, again, on salaries and pension itself, not on modernization, not on procurement of capital entities. I would like to show that to you. Have a look. If you're able to look into this figure, salaries and pensions in armed forces, army itself, is around 75%. But if you look at Navy, modernization expenditure is around 50%. And similar is with the Air Force. Modernization expenditure is high. What we need is a thin and leaner force. And we need more items on modernization budget, right? Now, similarly, so this is the modernization budget. When India looks at modernization of the armed forces, this is how we have been spending, and close to 30,000 crore is what we are spending on modernization. The whole budget is far more, 5.5 lakh crore, and we are spending only 30,000 crore on modernization, less than 10%. And rest of it, yes, we are procuring items, but this is not everything is modern. No, when we are procuring, for example, when we are procuring the chains of the tank, right? Or when we are procuring any capital supplies also, tire is a capital supply. So those supplies are to be procured indigenously right now as compared to what we were doing previously, which we were importing. So second largest importer India was, but India has been, right? But then India wants to start indigenizing the production. This is through the defense acquisition procedure. See, you can start quoting these kind of government orders. Defense acquisition procedure of 2020, it clearly states that acquisition can happen in two types, in two ways. One is you purchase the entity completely, and the second one is you lease the entity if it takes a long time for its purchasal. Look at the simple example of the air independent propulsion submarines itself. The first submarine that we possibly might get, if everything goes right, that will be 2032. China has got more than 42 diesel submarines, more than 40, and more than around 60 submarines in all. We've got just 16 of them, just 16 of them. So in case we are not able to create or manufacture them, or we must lease them for a long term, right? So this is what the defense acquisition procedure mentions very clearly. And purchaser also is of two kinds. One of the purchasal, it says, is buy, straight away buy, and the second one is make and buy and make, right? So through each of them, what we want is we import the technology, have an Indian partner. So see the AIP, the diesel AIP's submarine, this was the one where we were looking at a plan where we would be able to successfully run government program of having an Indian contractor and having a partner with a foreign contractor. So foreign contractor would pass on the technology, and slowly and steadily the level of indigenization also must increase. So the idea is to have the first submarine with 40% of indigenous technology, the second submarine with 50% of indigenous technology, the third submarine with 60%. This is how we are going to increase the rate of indigenization. We are exploiting them. Yeah, why not? When we are spending as much as 43,000 crore is, I think, the price quoted for 6 submarines. When this is what we are looking at, then we would rather have the technology as well, right? So this was the first time when we were looking at the successful implementation of a indigenous contractor and a foreign contractor collaboration under Government of India's headings, right? So this is what is defense acquisition procedure. So the percentage of foreign vendors, this is one problem with India. The percentage of foreign vendors, they are always high in Indian procurements. Why is it so? It is because we do not spend enough on innovation and technology. As simple. Editorials covered, numerous of them. You have the data with yourself, use that. So we have 40 to 45% of participation of foreign vendors whenever we look at the defense procurements. It's fine. Even if we want to have foreign vendors, that's fine. But you start procuring from Indian companies itself, have a joint venture. So BrahMos is a good example of the same. Now, moving ahead to another component of this. If you look at this particular chart, the capital outlays. See, yes, this was a question I had seen, Ashish. So the capital outlays have decreased at some point of time, and there has been a proportional increase in the pensions that we see. What is the reason for this? The pension increase has been because of the one-time grant of one rank, one pension. This led to an increased outlay for pension expenditure. Even if the amount may not have been allocated in the year 2014, it might have been allocated for the subsequent years. See how budget works. We will have to study that in details, and we will have to scrutinize that. So once the item says that the amount has been reserved in this year, it might be paid in the subsequent years, but it has been reserved in a specific year. And that same year, you would see lesser outlay for the other expenditure of the budget. So they try to balance each other. The 4-5 expenditures that we have are pension payments, then we have salary payments, defense modernization or capital outlay, maintenance. Now we have to juggle in this only. The amount will not change. Yes, the amount has considerably increased in the last 10 years. The defense total budget has increased 33% in the last 10 years. And the issue is that right now India needs to grow at a very faster pace so that we collect better taxes, right? The total collection of taxes is high, and that is how we pass a proportion of this tax to the defense budget, right? So the defense budget right now is what? Is growing or decreasing? It is only decreasing. See, the outlay has increased. Have a look at this image. And questions, please put it down. Have a look at this. See, the outlay, the total outlay has increased from around 2 lakh crore to 5.5 lakh crore. It has increased, absolutely. But the total percentage of expenditure, that has declined. Now we are spending around 5.5 lakh crore out of 40 lakh crore of spending. This is around 20%, 12% itself, right? 1/8. 1/8. I hope you are decent at CSAT. So 1/8 is 12.5%. This is what we are spending, and this has decreased. This has decreased, and we cannot afford further spending in defense just because we do not have enough capital available with us, right? So we need India to be growing at a faster pace. This is an important constraint itself. Now, another point here mentioned is there will be places that you would be seeing Indian armed forces has not been able to recruit people for the last 2 years because of COVID. Imagine, COVID restrictions have to be followed, and in this restriction, how can we train people when there is a limited time to train? The government will have to bear enough expenses, extra expenses on salary, on payments, on withholding the staff, not working. So around 2 lakh personnel are falling short. And in the last 2 years, every year, because of superannuation, 60,000 personnel, they retired from the service. So imagine, we were already falling short of the number of personnel and staff, and over and above the COVID has resulted in extreme loss of shortage of staff. But what is being said amongst the expert is that if we had 14 lakh of personnel and now we are 2 lakh short, we must be a little more shorter, maybe 1 to 2 more lakh shorter, so that we grow a leaner and thinner force, just like the other countries have. If we have leaner and thinner workforce, we will have to spend less on pensions, we will have to spend less on the salaries, and where will we spend this amount? We will again spend this amount in the capital expenditure, and that's what is required. Modernization is required. I showed you the graph very correctly. The spending proportion on modernization is very less as compared to what we spend in capital budget also. Yes, we have made changes. For example, one change made is increase in the capital outlay, right? There has been increase of around 35% in the capital budget. That's great, but the capital budget itself is 20% of the defense budget, which is very less. Now, and China spends double this amount. China spends 40% of its defense budget in capital outlay. So they have a smarter workforce. We have to learn from these countries. Another issue here is, when we spend this 20% in capital expenditure, a proportion of modernization is further small. So proportion of modernization is only 30,000 crore out of 1,50,000 crore. अब क्या आएगा इसमें? Will we be able to purchase good quality fighter jets? Modernization. That's the question. Okay. So there are various things that we have discussed today, right? Till now. And let me see if there is something else here. So yes, there are additional things we will discuss through the feature news, that for example, Indian Armed Forces is looking at cutting down the others cost as well. Others cost, you see, 9% of the service budget is for other. What is this other 50,000 crore? So canteen services department, canteen. Every unit, every small unit of 200 personnel, there would be 100 canteens in a small city also. 100 canteens. This is one. Then armed forces runs its messes. Officers mess is different, other ranks mess is different. So these are the services for the people. They'd get good treatment. They'd have various facilities like kitchen, party place, and there will be hostels. There will be units for residential persons also. So all this mess are again run by every unit. Every unit, a unit of 200 personnel will also be running a mess. They will also be running a canteen. Now, why cannot we merge all these canteen and mess facilities for everybody? This will save the cost. Similarly, when we are looking at simple example is provision of services. See, one simple example is this. Army has a different fueling station than Air Force. So Army vehicle will fuel at a different station, Air Force vehicle will fuel at a different station, and Naval vehicle will fuel at a different station, even when they are at the same junction. So Visakhapatnam has got Air Force, Army and Navy, they will be fueling at different places. This is duplication of work. We are not integrating our workforce. Similarly, when ration has to be provided, ration will be provided to army and different convoy will run. For navy and air force, different convoy will run. So these are the operational efficiencies which army, navy and air force are now looking at and further cutting down on these kind of issues. It's the root of anything is the root of any warfare is economy. The foundations of any growth is economy. And economy runs around innovation. So the person who is skilled enough, the person who is knowledgeable enough, they are the ones who are going to rule the game. Now here, where you see India is trying to modernize, India is facing the challenge of high number of personnel. We are facing the challenge of imports. We are facing the challenge of duplication of work. So the same work being done by all the other forces. We are also facing the challenge of imports, as I mentioned. So indigenization is one challenge that we are facing, and rationalizing the tasks, integrated theater command, right? Modernization is another challenge. So capital outlay is a different thing and modernization is associated with it, but it is different. These are the challenges that we face, and we want to rationalize each of them through explaining the budget as well. So when we understood the budget, we'd be very easily able to understand how we are getting restricted, what are the issues. So India's spending was up by 1% from 2020 and 33% from 2022. Imagine this. The defense spendings and military spendings have come to the tune of $77 billion. The last one was 71. Okay, we won't be able to expand our military spendings if we don't grow at the rate of 12% every year because of taxation. All right, we have got ample stocks of nuclear stockpile. We have got ample number of people, but if we have to service them all, we will need more finances. What are the needs? Modernization is needed, but we will have more capital expenditure for that. China is able to have more amount, India is not able to have. High salaries and pension spending is an issue. Yes. Manpower problems, right? Because we do not have technological manpower, we have the physical manpower available. Yes, they need to be sent. See, the borderline areas need better teeth to tail ratio. Yes, but then overall we need to cut down on the manpower in the country, right? Bettering of the logistics. All right, this is what we require. See, certain recommendations were given by the ex-CDS itself, Bipin Rawat. He had mentioned quite a few things. For example, he said officer mess legacy that I mentioned to you, that must go away. Let us mix all the ranks officers, all the ranks mess into one. So one mess for all the personnel. Then there was a mention that canteen stores department, it must be reduced down to one or few canteens in one area, not dependent on unit wise, right? Then they also said, let's do away with those kind of ceremonial parades or those kind of ceremonial occasions which spend budget, but they are not frugal enough. All right. And then doing away with certain kind of system like the Hayek system, the backman system, where at least one person is allocated to an armed forces officer. So this is what is called as the tail, right? Then the retirement age must be increased for some specific services. For example, logistics, technical and medical staff. What does it do? If we increase the specific age, for retirement for these specific kind of bodies, we will have more workforce participating for longer period of time. The government will not, and the armed forces will not have to spend extra budget on a new workforce. So in a complete tenure of an armed forces officer, the spending of the government could go as much as 12 crore rupee per army, navy or air force officer. And when you look at a similar kind of expenditure for half a tenure, so around 10 to 14 years, the expenditure is around 5 crore to 7 crores per officer. So if we increase the tenure from 54 years to 56 or 58 years or 57 years, we will have to spend proportionally maybe 10% less on all the amount. So these are the kind of ways and means government is looking at so that it could curtail down the complete expenditure on personal management. But what will it do? Further recruitment will be less. This is an issue related to it. All right. So what is required is to have an incremental approach. These are rational, but these are sudden transformative changes. We'll have to look at a rational approach. One of the rational approach that has been looked at is the provision of the 3-year period for the armed forces, right? 3-year period. What is that called? Somebody please put it down in the comment section. All right. So slow and steady transformative process, right? So starting with downsizing the armed forces, right? Hiring freeze cannot happen because we need forces at the border, but yes, we need to have technological developments in the warfare as well. All right, development must be given a priority in the country. Change of mindset in the military, because military is all about discipline, but changing the mindset as well. If the mindset can be changed towards females in the military through induction of females, mindset about financing also can change in the military, right? Similarly, indigenizing the production is an important aspect of the same. All right, considering the politico-strategic considerations. For example, we always fight 2.5 front war, Pakistan, China, and internal war with the left-wing extremism as well. So considering all of that also must be in the mind. So simple example is the tour of duty scheme that you people have just mentioned. Tour of duty scheme envisages that 3 years of active duty in armed forces, and then later on the people might be retired and they might switch on to other forces like the Central Armed Police Forces or organizations like the state police. Now this is a good idea, and if you want to understand the side effects of an issue like this, do look at today's editorial discussion as well, right? That will provide an issue, a perspective into why tour of duty might not be the best suited option for right now. Now, what is required is to work out a balance between personal cost, modernization, maintenance, and all the other norms that have been traditionally followed in the armed forces. All right. So let's understand what we covered today. What we covered today is, I would like to remind you all, we covered another featured news completely on defense modernization. We covered the issue of arms race also. I remember clearly, traditional arms race, nuclear arms race. So do look at those featured news also. Right now, what would we cover in defense spendings are the ways in which India spends its defense expenditure, right? So total expenditure transparently brought out to you all, right? Then we understood what are the inefficiencies in the defense sector completely. So spendings in pensions and salaries are high, and the norms and traditions that we have, Sahayak system, messing system, canteen service department, all of them are those kind of traditions which and ceremonial traditions which are leading to further inefficiencies, and as a part of reform have been recommended to be reduced down. Then we understood the various kind of integration that can happen in the workforce. For example, integration with automated devices, integration with modernized equipments, integration with the theater commands, all the armed forces to exist with each other. What are the issues? The issues are that of culture, the issues are that of spending, the issues is capital outlay, the issue is modernization that we are not able to do, right? The kind of challenges that we also have is the 2.5 front war that we are going through, and the new ways in which we can implement this. That is also a challenge, right? Now, if you got some questions, please put it down in the comment section. And we also have one question right here for you. The question states, the defense expenditure needs optimization. Absolutely it does, but we need to be immensely careful in doing so. Immensely careful. Have a look at that word. Yes, we need to be careful. And yes, one important thing here, military expenditure as a part of the GDP's spendings. So military expenditure as a part of GDP, India is spending around 2.8%, but then there are some countries which are spending far high. Saudi Arabia spends 6.6%, Russia at 4%, USA 3%, but it amounts to 10 times India's spending every year, $700 billion. USA only lately had given, I think, 30-40 billion dollars to Ukraine for logistical supplies and retrieving the supplies back to USA just for a year. Imagine this. Israel 2.8%. See, if our technology is good enough, our spendings might not have to be as high. right? As high as of GDP. If we are into innovation, then the spendings might not have to be proportionally as high. All right. So this is one thing, but then we also have, see, these are those countries only which are spending high amount and their proportion. So military expenditure as a percentage of GDP in highest spending countries, and that's the reason that you wouldn't see Pakistan in this list. Pakistan spends 4% of its GDP on military expenditure, but their expenditure is $10 billion. So that is why it is not here. Similarly, North Korea, we don't have all data about North Korea, about its GDP. So North Korea is also not placed here, but its spending is very high as a military state. All right. So this is a quick update. If you like this initiative, show some love to likes, comments, and shares. Let me see if there are some questions. People being offline, please put down the comments and questions if you have any. Okay. Okay, no questions here. Amlan says 3 years, 70-80 lakhs. Oh yes, that's what. And the amount that you're writing here, this is what informally military itself has mentioned, acknowledged, that the expenditures are lower if we train people and have them in the service tour of duty for a shorter time. That's why India says that for non-commissioned officers, NCOs, Jawans, we will have 3 years of service for those people, for approximately 1/3 of the people. See, the program is yet to be chalked out finally, and then next 3 years or few years for 1/3, and another proportion to be serving another different tenure. But the proportions have to be chalked out in details sooner than later. All right. So thank you for participation. Good night, all of you. Bubani, Amlan, Hima, Ashish, everybody else. Good night to all of you. Thank you.